Jays fans are absolutely buzzing over this as we have multiple Jays updates to go over today ahead of a huge game tonight against the Atlanta Braves at home. But the biggest storyline of the day was surrounding Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and his extension. But we have some huge updates as it pertains to not only that extension being finalized, but some comments from the top, Edward Rogers as well as Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins, about the future of this team. We're going to break that down and discuss what it means going forward, paired with, of course, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. speaking out for the first time officially since signing that contract just as of the time recording minutes ago. So a bunch to go over today, as well as break down a few new Jays updates ahead of tonight's big game against the Braves. Before we get to it, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jays content. We're on the road to 17,000 subscribers. If you want to help us towards that goal, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys again for your continued support. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot to go over today. And obviously, the Toronto Blue Jays are in a very good spot right now. They are top the AL East, and they return home for the first time in a while. They had that long road trip. They are now back home in a good position. And tonight's game is going to be an absolute movie. I probably shouldn't say that because we know how that ended up with the Jays player saying that. But regardless of that, it's going to be a fun game because specifically, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. just moments ago has signed his extension and he revealed some very interesting details. Let's start with his comments because fans are buzzing about this right now. The city of Toronto, this is one of the biggest moves in the past 2 decades for this team, just by the way that it sets them up for the future, a monumental move in Jays history. And you see this here from Vladdy. He takes the stage next to Edward Rogers, Mark Shapiro, and Ross Atkins. Let's start with Edward Rogers. He came out and said, we have 41 million fans, Vlad, who are standing shoulder to shoulder rooting for you. And there's a ton of comments to go over here. But if you watched the press conference, it was pretty nice. It was really nice to see. We saw everybody, the ownership, Edward Rogers from the top all the way down to Shapiro, Ross Atkins, just discussing how important Vladdy is to the future of this team. And it would be pretty poetic if Vladdy can hit an absolute moonshot tonight. But that aside, we'll save that for the video later today. It's true. And Vladdy finally put pen to paper. We've been talking about this extension. It was the story of the offseason, all these different things. And to see it finally, the day finally arrived where he put pen to paper on a 14-year, $500 million deal. It is electric. And obviously, we know Vlad, he's been with this organization since he was 16 years old. We think back to when they signed him to that deal, the international signing, and the bonus pool money, all these different things. He signed with Toronto. We're like, okay. And then you go, of course, if you've been a fan for a while, if you aren't, either way, we've been following Vladimir Guerrero Jr. since, his prospect days, how good he was going to be. I remember back in 2019 when he made his debut, Dan Schulman was announcing all these different things. And for him to really set the precedent for the future of this team is huge. Edward Rogers continues. He said, we want to win the World Series, and I believe we're going to win the World Series. And he thanked Vladdy for choosing to spend the rest of his career with the Blue Jays. And this is exactly what you want to hear from an owner. And of course, they're going to be saying this, but for an owner to say that he wants to win the World Series, and that his main focus is to win a World Series, and to put his mouth where his money is here, money where his mouth is, I guess, in this case, and to actually extend the guys. We know the Jays have been in on guys like Juan Soto, in on all these different players, Shohei Ohtani, Edward Rogers, the ownership, everybody, they clearly want to spend and they want to win a World Series. So for them to lock in Vladimir Guerrero Jr., that is a sign directly to the fans that, hey, we're going to be competing for years to come. We are not going in a rebuild. We're not going in a retool. We are willing to spend hundreds of $millions. And you have to be excited if you're a Jays fan, because now this increases the odds of Bichette returning. It increases the odds of future free agents coming to Toronto because, A, you're not rebuilding and you have a full foundation of young players and even players in their prime who are willing to win. But B, you have an owner in Ed Rogers who is willing to spend a ton of money to make this team competitive. And that is one of the best quotes you can see here. I believe we're going to win a World Series. And again, they do have 41 million fans who are rooting for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And Vladdy, of course, spoke out and said, since the day I signed here, I always thought that I'd be a Blue Jay forever. And that's what happened today. I'm going to be a Blue Jay forever. So, I mean, if you couldn't get any more excited about the future of this team, but also not only that, just tonight's game in general. That's why I mentioned in yesterday's post-game video that the win yesterday was one of the most important wins of the season, just because the energy now heading into what's going to be a crazy, hopefully electric Rogers Center tonight with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Of course, his first game back home. And we think back now to a couple years ago when they returned after the Rogers Center. They couldn't, the renovations were going on. They returned home to the Rogers Center. The Jays went on a monumental run a few years ago. And then, of course, they ultimately fell short of the playoffs. But the run was crazy, or fell short, of winning anything in the playoffs. The energy was fed from the fans. Now, I was at the home opener for the Toronto Blue Jays. So that game 1, I was at game 3. They lost both. The energy wasn't really there. It's slowly starting to get better, it seems. But if the Jays fans are going to come out tonight and be ready to go. You have to. You have, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. fans are buzzing right now, and it is an exciting time for the Toronto Blue Jays. And you can see some other comments, and this was, when the report came out, he says, the proud owners of Blue Jays, we're committed to building a championship team here, and we're thrilled to have Vlad's leadership as one of the best players in the game. Today is a win for the best fans in baseball. Mark Shapiro and others said this is a monumental moment in franchise history. Vlad has been a part of our Jays family since he was 16 years old and captured the heart of the city and our country. There are very few in the game today that can say they have played for more than 2 decades with the same team, and we are immensely grateful for Blue Jays fans because they will get to see Vlad finish his career where it all began. And this is, of course, from a week or so ago. And, of course, Ross Atkins came out. Franchise players like Vlad don't come along very often. He has already reached impressive performance levels, and his future is even brighter. Vlad has been embraced by the city of Toronto and Canada since day one, and we're thrilled he's a part. He's going to be with us for us long term. His ability to excel at the pinnacle of the game is matched by his passion for it. Now, all great things. And obviously, what matters most here is the Toronto Blue Jays winning games. They need to win the World Series. The ownership wants to win the World Series, and clearly, it kind of lends a little bit to the deadline. The trade deadline is going to be coming up right before we know it. This team is going all in, whether that's at this trade deadline, whether it's in the offseason. Their future is kind of now, but they have an extended window now. Of course, the conversations of Bichette are going to be one of the biggest things, kind of holding and hovering over this team for the foreseeable future. But this team needs to go out and win games. They are first in the AL East. They are playing really, solid baseball. Some interesting games against the Red Sox in the last game. And of course, definitely interesting games against the Orioles in the past couple. But regardless of that, you have a chance now in a game against the Atlanta Braves, who are struggling. They're 4-11. For this team now at home for the first time since your monumental superstar stayed in Canada and will be staying in Canada for what we think will be his entire career, unless he's still playing at 40 years old. You never know how sports science are going to develop. But it is absolutely electric to see. And you can see here, this savant, baseball savant so far this season, albeit it's a very short sample size, so savants don't matter too much. He hasn't even touched the pinnacle of where he can be this year. 731 OPS, he's hitting over 300. If he taps into that power, this team is going to take another step forward. Bichette hasn't tapped into his power. Santander hasn't tapped into his power. Vlad hasn't tapped into his power. A ton of players. No Dalton Varsho, so he hasn't tapped into his power. The team is they're poised now for a big run. Varsho is going to be returning fairly soon, and if Vladdy hits his first home run of the night, obviously the roof will blow off the place. But most importantly, if he can just stay within himself, continue to hit the ball fairly hard, and get a couple of home runs out of there, the team will be very good going forward. And speaking of which, here's the schedule. The Jays, of course, play the Braves in a 3-game series before their first off day in 2 weeks. This, I believe it is on Thursday. And then, of course, you have a weekend series against the Mariners at home before you're back on the road. The rest of the schedule is brutal. Take advantage of a struggling Atlanta Braves team. You need to at least win 2 out of 3 of these to keep the ball rolling. Hopefully the Jays can take care of business and be the winners of what's ultimately going to be a very brutal stretch of game in this AL. What used to be called the AL Beast. Kind of struggling a little bit this year. But that'll wrap it up. Let me know down below your thoughts there. Cheers.